welcome to Let's Be Perfectly Queer. This is the inaugural episode of a brand new show. You're probably tuning in expecting to see With Gerry, and you're going to be partially correct this evening. Gerry is indeed one of my guests on this inaugural show, but going forward, this new show, Let's Be Perfectly Queer, is a show for, by, and about the queer community in Simcoe, Muskoka. I'll be reaching out to folks across the county to get ideas for stories, for folks you want to see on the show, for events you want covered, for a segment that we're going to have on most episodes called Asking for a Friend, where we'll have folks asking questions for a friend. So that should be a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that you'll all stick with me for this ride, and we're going to kick it off right now with someone who has taken all of us on a ride for a little over 9 years now, starting with Man Talk, Man Time, yes, which morphed into With Gerry, which you can see now we have on the screen Without Gerry, which we're a little sad about. Oh, yeah. But I want to welcome my good friend Gerry Croteau to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Good. Yeah, this is a surprise.
Yeah, we've got a few of your former guests here as well. So to my right, Morgan Sheridan has joined us.
Yep.
To your left and my left, Chris Hart. And across from us, we have Dale Boyle and Ali Tuckey joining us as well. So all of these individuals, including myself, are former guests of With Gerry. So I want to start, first of all, with what got you involved in doing a show for the 2S LGBT community back 9+ years ago?
I knew former employees of Rogers that were here. Sydney McDonald, I think, was the manager here at Rogers. And I lobbied, and I said, how do we get a show that's, because at the time I thought Rogers will never go for an LGBTQ show. They're just not going to do it. It's too conservative. So we pitched a show that was more about a little bit of LGBTQ in it, but more centered around the arts, what some architects are doing, interior designers, that kind of thing. And then finally, the new management team that came in said, Man Time's had it, like it's done, we need a new angle. And so then we went, and the current supervisor here, Kevin Kelly, said, let's do something that's completely LGBT, let's just do it. And I said, okay. So then it morphed into With Gerry. Without Gerry. But it was important because it helped bring awareness to the community of what we were doing. Plus it helped, I worked at the Gilbert Center, and it helped promote some of what the programming that was being done there. And then I was able to bring guests that were much more in tune to what was happening within the LGBT community, like professionals in practice, and Chris Hart, what he does in real estate, and Ali with working with youth, and Dale working with Safer Spaces, highlighted a lot of what we were doing anyway in the community. And so, but it's not easy getting guests to come on and be perfectly queer.
I can certainly relate to that. Yeah. And Man Talk began when? When did you start here at Rogers?
Almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
And it was live television. So that, and the studio was...
Yes, we are not live right now.
It was live television, and so there was no time to make mistakes, and use foul language, and then you'd have guests coming on. I had one guest that came on and he was completely high, and F this, and my sister's stupid, and all stuff like this, and I'm hearing this, they can't say that,
But Morgan's already apologized for that.
I'm right here, I'm sitting right here. Yeah.
But there was, and then you talk about that, and we all know, because we've all been guests on shows, and I did have a drag queen on, Tim Lauren, who came in authentic drag with army boots and the dress. Drag originally was dresses that you made yourself and high makeup, and he had a wig, and behind the seat was a plant, not a plant, but a straw, like straws sticking out, like fake trees and something like this. And his blonde wig got stuck in the thing, and every time he moved, the plant moved like this. It's live television. And I'm going, oh, and he's moving, and the plant moves with him. It was just hilarious. Things like that. It's live television, so it's you can't, stop. And
So inquiring minds want to know, after almost 10 years of doing this show, why make the decision to stop doing the show?
Well, the show was an hour, right? Plus, it was every week. And you have to come up with a guest every week, and it's not easy finding guests that are willing. Lots of individuals. I mean, you five came on, but it's eventually you run out of people.
Yeah.
Eventually you run out of people, because even though you might know people in the community who are like who have businesses in town, hairdressing salons, who are architects, who work in high tech, but they don't always want to come on and talk about who they are and what they're about. So that, and the fact that it's time. It was time for a new, younger guy to take over.
I'm not sure what I'm doing here then, but
before I got kicked out.
But one thing you did say to me when you made the decision to leave was that you wanted to make sure in leaving that you left a spot for the same type of programming, so 2S LGBTQ representation on Rogers within our community. And why is that important?
Well, Rogers has long been a supporter of our organization. When it was the AIDS Committee of Simcoe County, they supported us. So there's been a long history and a partnership with Rogers and their community television. So naturally, they wanted to have representation from the community. And it was important that this type of show remains viable, because you hate to lose it.
Right.
It's an opportunity to keep the community alive in a much different way, because as we all know, we've tried to open up gay bars in town, and that didn't seem to go over too well, and so the community seems to get lost in its ability to have much more visible. Oh yeah, there's Pride, but that's once a year.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So to have that weekly platform where folks can go to and get that information and hear about events and other things going on in the community.
Yeah, and I think it's all part of Rogers' overall inclusivity and diversity in their programming. This fits into that mandate of theirs, I believe, and so it's important to keep it going. So congratulations for wanting to do it, because it's not for everybody.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, and I don't plan on wasting it, so that's great. I want to hear from some of our other guests and hear about some stories and experiences of your time on with Gerry. And let's start with Ali.
Oh, no.
What was your first... when you were recently on with Gerry, just this past season, I think.
Yeah, so I was on twice. One to highlight the youth programs that are running out of the Gilbert Center, and one to highlight the intergenerational programming that is being run out of the Gilbert Center. So yeah, both times were a lot of fun. I think that part of what was so great to be on the show and to be on the show again was just the atmosphere around it. It was very much so just conversational. It was easy. We were laughing at times, talking like cameras weren't on.
There'll be none of that tonight.
Okay. Professional. Yeah, and so it was just a very easy atmosphere and created a really good platform to talk about things that normally wouldn't necessarily be talked about so openly. We talked about the prison industrial complex, and we talked about crises that are facing youth, and especially within those intergenerational pieces, we highlighted what senior LGBTQ folks can learn from younger folks and vice versa, and those are conversations that aren't necessarily always readily happening. So I find that it was a really, really groundbreaking experience for me, and hopefully for folks that witness the show, to just see that conversation in the forefront.
That's great. That's great. And Ali was actually one of the folks that was instrumental in helping me decide on a name for the new show. And it was Ali who has come up with the segment Asking for a Friend that we're going to feature on a lot of the episodes as well. So thank you for that and for your input and your continued input into story ideas and suggestions on what we should be doing as part of the new show.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me
Ask for
too.
a friend.
Me too. Yeah.
And is it like a
fairly
dial-in?
certain Ali is going to be my first segment that I'm going to take for that.
That'll be interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move on to you, Dale, and your experiences on with Gerry.
My first time being on the show, and Gerry, you might have to remind me, it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was a student at Georgian College, and I didn't know what to wear, I didn't know what to say, I'd never been in front of a camera, and more importantly, I didn't know it was taped live. And so Gerry started the show, said we are live from Mantime, and you could see the fear and the worry just come right on my face, and it was a terrifying moment. Since then, I had been on the show a number of times to promote the work of the Gilbert Center and the work doing in the community, but I'll never forget that first time where I found out it was live while being on the show. That was an interesting moment, but I've loved it ever since. I've really appreciated being on the show, having conversations with you, sharing the programs that we're doing in our community, and the work that our LGBTQ community can benefit from and can get engaged to by being on the show. The fact that it's continuing with Let's Be Perfectly Queer, I think it's just fantastic and something that's needed in the community. So had it not been you, I would be worried with what else would take that segment in that time, because I think something needs to continue with that. So thank you for both of you for doing this work for so long, and hopefully 10 years with yourself in the future.
We'll see if I make it 10 minutes. But thank you for that. And Chris, you've obviously been on with Gerry as well.
Well,
And
you know, in 10 years, one time.
But you had kids, right? You got married, had kids.
We got married and had kids. No, and I appreciated the opportunity. I actually, my appearance on your show was in conjunction with my my membership with Professionals in Practice that Morgan started. So representation for the LGBTQ business community, and so we came on and we were supposed to be talking about the organization. I think we kind of veered off into family, a lot of family talk about the kids.
We did.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of it, though.
Yeah.
So,
Was that the one that Lagaya was on too?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That was a good segment.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good segment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I watch your show every week, and I think what you've done for the community over the last 10 years and the work that you're doing at the Gilbert Center is amazing, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate that, and I know that many others do. So, and you're a great guy. You're a sweet guy.
That's good,
You're a really
good.
sweet guy.
there we go. We got the tears going. All right.
We wanted
There's no
to see
Kleenex.
that.
Where's the
Mission
Kleenex?
accomplished. Mission accomplished.
Where's the Kleenex?
Speaking of tears and Kleenex, Morgan.
I know.
Great segue. Thank you,
I know. Well, I mean,
Let's hear about your.
yeah.
with
Gerry and I
Gerry.
go way back. I mean, way back. I was a co-op student with you right when it was the AIDS committee of the ACSC, and I think you were just the new executive director, at that point.
It's 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah, and I was only a toddler when I came into work. Yeah, I know.
I think you were 18,
So a
weren't you?
teenager.
Weren't you 18?
Yeah, I was very, very young. But so we've gone back. But I've always appreciated being on your show, and I think. Again, to echo what the other guests have said too, you have done tremendous work for the community, and I think that very similar to Professionals in Practice, the more that we have individuals get in front of people that are LGBTQ in the community, the more normalized it becomes, and I think you've done tremendous work, and you should be commended for that. But I actually have a couple questions for myself. So now that you've got all of this time, this free time, what are you going to do with it all?
Free time?
Free time, yeah, because you're not hosting the show. What are you gonna? Are you sailing? Are you gambling or picking up smoking? Or
No, we're very busy. We
Yeah.
just received a 5-year project with New Horizons program, which is part of a Pan-Canadian funding out of the federal government for 5 years, working with Dale, as a matter of fact, and working with North Bay and Sudbury on bringing LGBTQ, 2S LGBTQ for seniors. So that's a big project. So that's going to take and I bought into a family cottage with 6 cousins. So I'm off there next week. We're building a used garage. So I have to help with that, not build, but just look and go, oh yes, more wine. And I'm joining the board of the Legal Clinic of Ontario. And so, yeah, I have a lot of time. And I have 4 grandsons
Yeah.
that don't need me, but, I force myself
Yeah.
for them to put up with me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's busy. It's busy.
Yeah.
And anyway, it's time. When you do a show and you put energy into it and then you feel, oh, no, because it is time consuming every week, whether it's a half an hour or an hour, you still have to make sure. And when it was live, in January the 15th, and it's snowing and the blizzard out, and you're going, are they going to show up or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so and you want to make it interesting. And when it becomes not interesting, then not that it wasn't, but it's when it becomes you have to look for someone and who can I get, and you're calling people desperately. You have to come on the show. I have nobody.
Right.
I
So
mean,
that's how I ended up.
that's what you should.
I was on 4 times. So.
I did have a show. I think it was last year or the year before, my opening show like this, and my guest called me like half an hour before. Sorry, I completely forgot about it, and I'm in Toronto, and I can't be there. I called Essen Mao. Essen, get your makeup on, put on your wig, get over here quick. And she did come. She was here like within 25 minutes or so. So the show went on because the opening show, there's no rerun.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
At least when there's reruns that you can, if the guest doesn't show up, you
Yeah.
can always do a rerun.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. It's really been. I mean, I'm just so surprised to see it. I thought it was just going to be
Yeah.
one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Randy, "Where's the hair and makeup people?" It's 7:00.
Where's your driver?
Where's my driver?
Yeah.
Not even a driver.
Yeah.
And all these red trucks sitting in the parking
Had you
lot.
stayed for 10 years, you might have gotten makeup and a driver.
Yeah, that's right.
You left a few months early.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we talk about what you're doing next, which is fabulous. We've talked about your guests here and their experiences on your show, but I want to hear from you of the almost 10 years that you were doing the show. What was your favorite experience, your favorite guest? What really stands out as sort of the penultimate moment for With Gerry?
They were all the guests were great guests, really.
But there has to be somebody that's really
Right. I was going to say, as we're all sitting here. Yeah.
excluding the folks in this
Right.
room.
Of course, it was Chris. I don't know, it was Alan. They were all memorable, actually. Really, there were funny moments more than there were memorable moments more than interesting guests. Because all the guests I tried to, but there was one guest that came on, and he was a kitchen designer, and it was live, and Kent fell asleep, and I could hear him snoring. And the guy's sitting here, and we're talking, and I'm hearing, I'm going, oh, no, things like that happened.
Right.
Memorable guests. I guess one of the segments that was really memorable was Madame Outrageous, a drag queen from Collingwood. She came on the show one week with a beard, business attire, suit, tie, and everything. And then the following week, she came on in drag. She shaved the beard, had a wig that she had in Toronto Pride back in the 70s.
Wow.
And she phoned me up and she said, I need a dozen red roses, champagne, flute glasses, otherwise I'm not going to do it. And I thought, oh. So we had a bottle of champagne, but it was non-alcohol. We had a dozen red roses, and she came on and she had her partner at the time, who had white gloves and a tuxedo, drape on the chair a silver sequin coat that Craig Russell had. I couldn't even touch it. I wanted to wear it. Don't touch the coat! And there it sat like an effigy of Craig Russell. And that was interesting because it was a total surprise to everybody, because she came on and she didn't look at all like the week before.
Right.
Wow.
Because I had said, and next week I'm having Madame Outrageous. I hope you can watch the show. Meanwhile, I'm talking to Madame Outrageous. So that was probably
That's cool.
only because of the way the juxtaposition of the two shows made it really interesting. But everybody that comes on, why would you have a boring guest?
Sometimes you can't tell, though.
Yeah. Sometimes you can.
It's like a date.
I didn't even look at you when I said that. You're going in your mind, you're going,
Yeah.
why is this so boring?
No, I'm sure that's a challenge. Though. I know I'm already finding that a challenge, and that's why I've reached out to the public for ideas on stories and shows that folks in the community want to see, because that sort of gives me an idea. Okay, maybe I should talk to so and so.
And you're mentored, right? I mean, like Deanne McCullum was one of my mentors over the years, and because I'm not trained professionally to do television. I mean, I've never did television until I did Rogers, And then being a host, I remember I had two guests on, two nurses, and I would just put the question out. And so, what do you think about safer sex, or what do you think about condoms? But I never directed it to anyone. So one of the guests kept answering the question, and the other nurses sat there going. And then after the show, she said to me, I almost walked off because And I didn't know if you're going to talk to a guest, you say, oh, so Morgan, what do you think?
right.
Rather than just put it out there and there's 4 of us sitting and we're all, okay, I'll answer it. You know, so you get one dominant personality, and this is what happened. So you learn through experience, you know, that you don't do that.
Absolutely.
As you probably have more experience than because you've been speaking all over the place, and you always have to think, right, ahead of time.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you were my first TV show appearance.
Clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, for the 4 of you as previous guests on With Gerry, I want to hear from each of you, and we'll start with you, Morgan. What do you want to see from Let's Be Perfectly Queer?
I was actually going to ask. I was going to ask you that question. So what is?
But it's my show, so I'm asking.
No. So perfect. Yeah. You know what? I think that having interesting LGBTQ folks on and talk about what they're doing at the crux of it is the most important part, because I think human interest stories are genuinely very interesting to people. So I think seeing more of that, you know, what are some of the people in the community doing, and what are what's the impact that they're having in the community? So hoping to see, you know, a little bit more of that, and you've done a lot of it, and I assume that you'll probably continue on.
Absolutely.
To continue to do that. But I think, you know, we've chatted, and you had mentioned that you're planning on getting out and about a little bit, which I think is neat, and I think that'll be really good too. But yeah, I think the human interest piece is something that hopefully you know, doesn't get lost in it all.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely.
And I'll come back on.
And Allie?
Talk.
Well,
I know we've had these conversations already, but
my friend told me.
Yeah.
No, but I am excited for that segment. I think that it'll be really cool to see what kind of questions people bring forward, whether it be about like dating, relationships, or sexual health. It's that thin layer of being anonymous while asking that question. Very thin. I'm stressing that it's thin. Of asking those questions can be a lot of fun and can provide some really good answers. And I mean, especially around like sexual health and consent and relationships, those questions can be really informative and hilarious.
yeah, I agree.
Right?
No, I think I thank you for the idea. I think it's fabulous, and I know the graphic that we're coming up with to introduce that segment is going to be pretty cool as well. So.
I just came here to say that my idea is great. So.
That's the only reason why I invited you on the show.
Perfect.
How are people going to ask? Is it through like email, or is it through like a call-in thing? And are you?
It'll be
to be determined.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be a number of different ways. We'll
Yeah.
do some on the street, like on the spot stuff.
Yeah.
Some of it will come through social media channels. Where
Okay, right.
I'll be asking folks to submit questions for asking for a friend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll take on a few different variations as the show progresses
That's
and
fun.
matures. We're getting close on time here, so
Yeah.
Dale, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'll answer quickly. In fact, Morgan, you brought it up when the phone-in. I remember, Gerry, when it used to be taped live, we used to encourage people to call into the show to ask questions, and you'd hear their voice coming through. And I know that's difficult to facilitate, but with the age of social media and hashtags and et cetera, I think that there would be interesting ways to allow people to ask and to ask for a friend and send in a tweet or whatever that may be and get user voices onto the show, even if they can't necessarily call in, but they can still engage. Perhaps there can be something on the screen, it could make the post,
Yeah.
and I think that would be a great way to bring the community into the show, even if they can't be at the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
What they
Chris?
I like the idea. I mean, obviously, you know, profiling people in the community, but maybe zooming out a bit and what's going on internationally with LGBTQ issues, and maybe some fluff, some fun stuff, like some silly stuff that just, you know, a couple of outrageous guests. You never had outrageous guests on, but.
Madam
outrageous.
She was pretty outrageous. No, yeah.
Facetious.
And what about yourself, Gerry? What would you like to see Let's Be Perfectly Queer look like?
I think this is a good start, having me on every show.
We did talk about doing the co-host thing, didn't we?
We did. No, you know what? What's good about it is you can see something new, fresh. Somebody new brings new ideas, new freshness, which you're doing, which I didn't do. And not to say that one is better than the other, but I think a fresh approach, because television, to engage people, has to be fresh, change, show some interesting.
Right.
And I think for you to come on and do something completely different in terms of how you frame it and how you title the show brings a freshness to it that will encourage people to watch and see that the community isn't stagnant and there is new ideas coming out, and then you may have similar guests and you may have other guests.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I thought it was important that we branch out from just in-studio segments. So we will be doing, I'm touring the entire month of October across the country in the Slay Stigma Tour, promoting U equals U and dismantling stigma around folks who are living with HIV. So there'll be a lot of segments that will be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Touring, eh?
Touring.
So,
Yeah,
so that's
it's part
your
of my
new full-
job.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's your job.
Apparently, the show's budget is a lot bigger than when it was with Gerry.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the rider he's going to have? There'll be champagne.
Oh, yeah.
I'm with a drag queen for 30 days. I am going to be a diva by the time I get back.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. But we do have a stop.
Going to
We
be?
do have a stop here in Barrie that I want to make sure all of our viewers are aware of. So on October 16th, Trinity K. Bonet from season 6 of RuPaul's Drag Race, the first RuPaul's Drag Race queen. That's a lot to say.
That's a lot, yeah.
To make an appearance here in Barrie, which I think is huge in and of itself, will be at the Georgian Theatre on the evening of October 16th. Tickets are free. All you have to do is go on to the website positivity.ca, P-O-Z-itivity.ca, sign the pledge against HIV stigma, and you'll receive 2 free tickets to the show. We've got not only Trinity performing, but some local queens as well. Justine Diaz has confirmed an appearance on the show. Anya Dreams will be joining us as well. We're still working on a few other logistics and local talent to be on the show, but P Flag's choir will be performing at the show as well. So it's going to be a great way to have some fun. There'll be a segment of the show where Trinity and I will do a back and forth and a question and answer, and hopefully take some questions from the audience as well around HIV and stigma. And it's a chance to entertain, as you mentioned, a little bit of fluff, but to also get some important information out to folks as well. So that's what I'm hoping this entire show ends up being. So
Yeah. And who are you touring with again?
Trinity K. Bonet.
Right. Oh, you are.
Yeah, from season
yeah.
6
he's
of
not
RuPaul's
Trinity.
Drag Race. Yeah.
What's that?
He's not Trinity.
No. That's the great reveal. Surprise.
Well, at some point along the tour, I will be hosting in drag, and
Okay.
we haven't decided which stop that will be at yet,
Okay,
whether it'll
yeah.
be just one or more than one, but
Yeah.
there is a chance that perhaps my home stop will be
Yeah.
the reveal of what I look like in drag. Which
And are you touring like on a bus? Like is it like a rock
well,
show type
we'll be
thing?
flying to some venues. We start in Yellowknife, and we end in St. John's, Newfoundland. So
It's a white man.
we have come to the
rainbow
end.
van.
We have come to the end of my half hour, and I want to say thank you to all of you for joining me on this inaugural episode of Let's Be Perfectly Queer. But mostly, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because without the work that you've done over the last almost 10 years, I wouldn't have this platform. The work that you've done on with Gerry has been these stumbling blocks, the building blocks.
Stumbling. Thank you.
Have been the building blocks for this show and for opportunities right across Simcoe County, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for all you've done. So
Thank you. And
thank you, my friend.
congratulations and all the best.
Thank you very much, and thank all of you again.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for tuning in, and hope you will see us again next week.